I stood in the conference room at Hollowgate Systems, watching my sister Vanessa straighten her blazer before sitting in the chair that used to be our father's. The leather creaked under her weight, a sound I had heard 1,000 times growing up when Dad worked late into the night, building this architectural firm from nothing. My fingers drummed against the polished mahogany table, each tap echoing my accelerating heartbeat. "I appreciate everyone gathering on such short notice," Vanessa began, her voice carrying that artificial sweetness she reserved for board meetings. Her eyes swept across the room, landing on me last. "As you all know, my father's passing left a significant void in this company's leadership structure. After careful consideration with the board, I am honored to accept the position of Chief Executive Officer." The room erupted in polite applause. I clapped too, mechanically, even though my stomach churned. Dad had been gone for 3 months. 3 months of watching Vanessa schmooze with board members, of seeing her erase my contributions from presentations, of feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. I had spent 8 years at Hollowgate Systems, working my way from junior architect to vice president of operations. I had managed the Denver Convention Center project that brought in $12 million. I had restructured our supply chain and cut costs by 18% without sacrificing quality. None of that seemed to matter now. "This transition represents an exciting new chapter," Vanessa continued, flipping through her notes with manicured fingers. "One that requires fresh perspectives and strategic reorganization. To that end, I will be conducting individual meetings with department heads over the next week to discuss our path forward." My colleague Jordan caught my eye from across the table and gave me a subtle thumbs up. He mouthed the words, "You got this." I managed a weak smile. Jordan knew I had been working on a proposal for expanding our sustainable building division, something Dad and I had discussed extensively before his heart attack. The proposal sat on my laptop, polished and ready, representing months of research and countless late nights. The meeting concluded 20 minutes later. As people filed out, murmuring congratulations to Vanessa, I approached her desk. She did not look up from her phone. "Vanessa, I wanted to discuss the sustainability initiative," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I know Dad was enthusiastic about it, and I have all the projections ready for your review." She glanced up, her expression unreadable. "Schedule something with my assistant." "I already tried. She said your calendar is blocked for the next 2 weeks. Then I suppose it will have to wait." She returned to her phone, scrolling with deliberate slowness. I wanted to argue, to remind her that this company was as much mine as hers, that Dad had always treated us as equals, even if the official titles did not reflect it. But something in her posture, the set of her jaw, warned me that pushing would be futile. I turned to leave. "Oh, and one more thing," Vanessa called out, just as my hand touched the door handle. Her voice had lost its professional veneer, becoming something sharper, more personal. "I need you to compile all your project files and client communications. Have them on my desk by Friday." That is 3 days away. Some of those projects are ongoing and... "Friday," she repeated, her eyes finally meeting mine. They were cold, calculating. Nothing like the sister who used to split cookies with me at our grandmother's house. "I need to understand exactly what you have been working on. Transparency is essential in leadership transitions." I nodded stiffly and left, my mind racing. The request was unusual, but not completely out of line for a new CEO. Still, something about it felt wrong, like the first crack in ice before it shatters completely. That evening, I drove to my apartment in Capitol Hill, the Denver skyline glittering against the darkening sky. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "How did it go today? Call me when you can." I did not call. I could not bring myself to explain that the daughter she had always favored, the one who could do no wrong, was now my boss. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop, beginning the tedious process of organizing 8 years of work into neat digital folders. Each file represented a piece of me, a problem solved, a client satisfied, a building that would stand for decades. I wondered if Vanessa would appreciate any of it, or if she even cared. By midnight, I had organized everything. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, and my shoulders ached from tension. I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in my mind. Something was coming. I could feel it in the way Vanessa had looked at me, in the careful distance she maintained, in the way the board members had avoided my gaze when they congratulated her. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by dreams of crumbling buildings and locked doors. When morning arrived, I felt more exhausted than when I had gone to bed. But I got up anyway, showered, dressed, and prepared myself for another day at Hollowgate Systems, not knowing that my entire world was about to collapse. The next morning arrived with unseasonable warmth for October in Denver. I reached the office early, as I always did, and found the parking garage nearly empty, except for the cleaning crew's van and a sleek black Mercedes that I recognized as belonging to Douglas, our company attorney. His presence at 7 a.m. struck me as odd, but I dismissed it as coincidence and headed upstairs. My assistant, Claire, was already at her desk, which was unusual. She typically arrived at 8:30, giving herself time to drop her daughter at school first. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and she immediately busied herself with papers on her desk, avoiding eye contact. "Morning, Claire," I said, slowing my pace. "Everything okay?" "Fine," she replied quickly, too quickly. "Just getting a head start on some filing." I wanted to press further, but the elevator dinged behind me, and Jordan emerged with 2 coffees in hand. He extended one to me with a grim expression. "We need to talk," he said quietly, glancing toward Vanessa's office. "Conference room 3. Now." My stomach dropped. Jordan was not dramatic by nature. If he looked this serious, something significant had happened. We walked in silence to the small conference room at the end of the hall, the one we typically used for confidential client calls. He closed the door and pulled the blinds. "I probably should not be telling you this," he began, setting his coffee down untouched. "But you deserve to know before it happens. I overheard Douglas and Vanessa talking this morning. They were discussing termination procedures." The room tilted slightly. "Whose termination?" His silence answered my question. I sank into the nearest chair, my coffee forgotten. "Are you certain?" "I heard your name. Multiple times." Jordan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from all the late nights we had pulled together on difficult projects. She was asking about severance packages, legal liabilities, how to handle ongoing projects. Douglas was walking her through the process. "But I have done nothing wrong. My performance reviews have always been excellent. Dad never..." I stopped myself, realizing the futility of the statement. Dad was gone. His opinions, his protections, his belief in my abilities meant nothing now. "I know," Jordan said softly. "Everyone knows. This is not about performance. It is about control. She wants her own team, people who owe her their positions." We sat in heavy silence for several minutes. The coffee in my hand had grown lukewarm, but I did not notice. My mind raced through possibilities, strategies, ways to fight back or at least protect myself. 8 years of my life had been poured into this company. I had sacrificed relationships, missed family events, worked through holidays and vacations. And now my own sister was about to erase me as if I had never existed. "What should I do?" I asked finally, hating how small my voice sounded. "Document everything," Jordan advised. "Make copies of your projects, your communications, anything that proves your value. If she is going to do this, at least make sure you can demonstrate your contributions to future employers." I nodded mechanically, already mentally cataloging what I needed to preserve. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Meeting with V, 2 p.m., her office. The message felt ominous now, laden with meaning I had not recognized when I had first received it yesterday. The morning crawled by. I went through the motions of work, responding to emails, reviewing blueprints, pretending everything was normal while my world disintegrated around me. Claire avoided me entirely, taking her lunch early and returning late. Other colleagues gave me sympathetic looks or avoided me altogether, confirming that the news had spread through the office grapevine. At 1:55, I stood outside Vanessa's office, my hand hovering over the door handle. Through the frosted glass, I could see her silhouette at the desk, speaking on the phone. I knocked twice, firmly. "Come in," she called. The office had been redecorated since Dad's death. His warm wood furniture had been replaced with modern glass and chrome. Family photos that once lined the credenza were gone, replaced by awards and certificates bearing Vanessa's name. Even the smell had changed, from Dad's familiar coffee and old books to Vanessa's expensive perfume and furniture polish. She gestured to the chair across from her desk without looking up from her computer. I sat, folding my hands in my lap to keep them from trembling. "Thank you for coming on time," she said, finally meeting my gaze. Her expression was professionally neutral, the kind practiced in business school. I will get straight to the point because I value efficiency. My heart hammered against my ribs. After careful review of our organizational structure and operational needs, the board and I have determined that your role as Vice President of Operations is redundant. We are restructuring the department, and your position is being eliminated. The words hit me like physical blows. I had expected this, Jordan had warned me, but hearing it spoken aloud made it devastatingly real. "Effective immediately?" I managed to ask. "Effective close of business Friday. That gives you 3 days to transition your projects and responsibilities." She slid a folder across the desk. "These are your severance documents. The package is quite generous, I assure you. 3 months' salary, continued health insurance for 6 months, and positive references upon request." I stared at the folder without touching it. "This is because of Dad, is it not? You never wanted me here." "This is a business decision," Vanessa replied coolly. "Nothing personal. Your services are simply no longer required." Those words would echo in my mind for days afterward. Your services are no longer required. As if 8 years could be summarized and dismissed in 5 cold words. I do not remember leaving Vanessa's office or walking to my car. The next thing I knew, I was sitting in the parking garage, gripping the steering wheel hard enough to hurt, trying to remember how to breathe. My phone kept buzzing with messages, probably from Jordan or Claire, but I could not bring myself to look at them. 3 days. I had 3 days to pack up my career, to pretend everything was fine while my sister systematically erased me from the company my father built. The cruelty of it was breathtaking in its simplicity. She had not fired me immediately, which would have been messy and drawn attention. Instead, she was giving me just enough time to make it look voluntary, to save face, to go quietly. I started the car and drove without thinking, letting muscle memory guide me. Denver's streets blurred past, familiar landmarks registering only vaguely in my consciousness. Before I realized it, I was on Interstate 70, heading west toward the mountains, my beach house. The phrase felt like a lifeline, a place where I could think clearly without Vanessa's cold gaze or the pitying looks of colleagues who knew my fate before I did. The beach house sat in Oregon, 3 hours north of Coos Bay, perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. I had bought it 2 years ago with money from a substantial bonus, back when Dad was still alive and proud of my accomplishments. It was my sanctuary, the place I escaped to on long weekends when the stress of projects and deadlines became too much. The drive would take 15 hours, but I did not care. I needed distance, space. Somewhere Vanessa could not reach me. I stopped once for gas and coffee, then continued through the night, watching the landscape transform from Denver's urban sprawl to the endless plains of Nebraska, then the mountains of Wyoming, the high desert of Idaho, and finally the lush forests of Oregon. Dawn broke as I crossed into Coos County, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The beauty of it should have moved me, but I felt numb, hollowed out. The beach house came into view around 8 in the morning. Its weathered cedar shingles and wide windows had never looked more welcoming. I pulled into the gravel driveway and killed the engine, savoring the silence broken only by distant waves. This was mine. Vanessa could take my job, could erase my contributions from company records, could treat me like I never mattered, but she could not take this. I grabbed my overnight bag from the trunk and approached the front door, fishing for my keys. The door was unlocked. I froze, my hand on the knob. I always locked it when I left. Always. Portland was 2 hours south, and while the area was generally safe, leaving a vacation home unsecured invited trouble. I pushed the door open slowly, my senses on high alert. Everything looked normal at first glance. The furniture was where I left it. The kitchen clean. No signs of forced entry or ransacking. Relief started to wash over me until I heard voices from the back deck. "This view is exactly what I needed," a male voice said, low and satisfied. "3 days here, and I will be recharged." My blood turned to ice. I knew that voice. Trevor. Vanessa's husband of 5 years, a real estate developer who specialized in vacation properties and had all the charm of a used car salesman. What was he doing here? Vanessa knew about the beach house. I had mentioned it a few times, but I had never given her a key, never invited her to visit. Daddy's little favorite never appreciated what she had. Another voice replied, this one female and achingly familiar. Vanessa. She always took everything for granted. The job, the recognition, this place. I moved silently toward the back of the house, my heart pounding. Through the sliding glass doors, I could see them on the deck. Vanessa lounged in my favorite chair, the teak one I had found at an estate sale, and refinished myself. Trevor stood at the railing, beer in hand, surveying my ocean view as if he owned it. She probably does not even come here that often, Trevor continued. Such a waste. When we transfer the deed, I am thinking we expand the deck, maybe add a hot tub. Transfer the deed? My hands clenched into fists. This was insane. They could not just take my house. Property law did not work that way, regardless of how entitled they felt. I slid the door open with more force than necessary, and they both jumped. Vanessa's eyes widened, then narrowed. Trevor's surprise quickly morphed into annoyance, his face reddening. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa demanded, rising from the chair. "You should be in Denver, handling your transition." "This is my house," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the rage building in my chest. "The question is, what are you doing here?" "Don't play dumb," Trevor snapped, slamming his beer down on the railing. "Vanessa told me about this place months ago. She said you were thinking of selling, that family should get first dibs." "I never said that. I have never even considered selling." "You are lying," Vanessa interjected, stepping forward. "I have emails where you mentioned it. Do not try to backtrack now." She was lying. I had never sent such emails because the thought had never crossed my mind. This house represented freedom, achievement, a piece of my life that had nothing to do with Hollowgate systems or family obligations. It was mine in a way nothing else had ever been. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" Trevor's voice rose an octave. "Who do you think you are talking to? This house should have gone to Vanessa in the first place. Your father left her the company. She deserves more than that after everything she has sacrificed." "What sacrifices?" I asked, genuine bewilderment breaking through my anger. "Vanessa got everything she ever wanted. The recognition, the praise, the favoritism." "Shut up," Trevor snarled, moving toward me with aggression radiating from every line of his body. "You are just a parasite, who has been riding on family connections your whole life. Why is this parasite even here? Get the hell out of this house before I throw you out myself. The word parasite hung in the air between us, poisonous and final. I looked at my sister, waiting for her to defend me, to tell her husband he had gone too far. She said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. "Sure," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "I will leave." I turned and walked back through the house, grabbed my bag and headed for my car. Behind me, I heard Trevor laughing, making some crude joke to Vanessa about my reaction. Let them laugh. Let them think they had won, because by tomorrow morning, they would both regret every word. I drove back toward town, my mind working through the implications of what just happened. Trevor and Vanessa had broken into my property. More than that, they had plans for it, detailed plans involving construction and ownership transfer, which meant this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. They had been plotting this for months, probably since Dad died. I pulled into a small diner on Highway 101 and ordered coffee I did not drink. My phone had 17 missed calls from Jordan, 6 from my mother, and a text from Claire that simply said, "I am so sorry. Call me when you can." I ignored all of them, and instead opened my banking app, checking the account tied to my beach house mortgage and utilities. The last payment to my electricity provider had processed 4 days ago. Standard monthly charge. But there was another charge I did not recognize, dated 2 weeks back, an $800 payment to something called Cascade Property Services. I Googled the name. It was a local property management and real estate company based in Coos Bay. My fingers flew across my phone's keyboard, calling the company's main number. A cheerful voice answered on the third ring. "Cascade Property Services. This is Jennifer speaking. How can I help you?" "Hi. I am calling about a charge that appeared on my account. $800, 2 weeks ago. Can you tell me what that was for?" "Certainly. Can I get your name and the property address?" I provided both, listening to the sound of typing on the other end. "Okay, I have your account here. That charge was for key replacement services and a property inspection requested by..." She paused. "Vanessa Reynolds. Is she the co-owner?" "No," I said flatly. "She is not." "Did she provide any documentation proving ownership?" More typing. "It says here she presented a power of attorney document granting her authority to make decisions regarding the property. We required notarization, and everything appeared legitimate." Power of attorney. The words made my stomach churn. "Can you email me a copy of that document?" "I'm sorry, but I would need written authorization from Ms. Reynolds to release that information. Company policy." "This is my property," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "I never signed any power of attorney, which means what she presented was fraudulent." Jennifer's tone shifted, becoming more formal. "If you believe there has been fraud, I would recommend filing a police report and having them contact us. We take these matters very seriously, but I cannot release documents without proper authorization." I thanked her and ended the call, then immediately dialed the Coos County Sheriff's Office. The deputy who answered listened to my story with professional detachment, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he sighed. "Ma'am, this sounds like a civil matter, possibly fraud, but it is going to be difficult to prosecute without that power of attorney document. If they forged your signature, we can pursue charges, but we need the evidence first. The property management company has it, but they will not release it without authorization. Then you will need a court order or a lawyer to subpoena it. I can file an initial report for you, but honestly, this is going to take time. These things always do." Time I did not have. Trevor and Vanessa were in my house right now, planning renovations, acting like they owned it. If I could not get them out quickly, they might do permanent damage or find ways to complicate the ownership further. I thanked the deputy and hung up, then sat in the diner booth, staring at the cold coffee in front of me. My sister had not just fired me from the family company. She was trying to steal my house. The realization crystallized into something cold and hard in my chest. This was not sibling rivalry or professional competition. This was systematic, calculated theft. My phone buzzed. Jordan again. This time I answered. "Where are you?" he asked immediately. "Everyone is looking for you. Vanessa is furious that you left without—" "I am in Oregon," I interrupted. "At my beach house. Except Vanessa and Trevor are here too, planning to take it from me." Silence on the other end. Then, "What?" I explained everything, from the property management charge to the forged power of attorney, to Trevor calling me a parasite. Jordan listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he let out a low whistle. "She is not just firing you. She is trying to destroy you." "Looks like it. What are you going to do?" That was the question I had been asking myself since I left the beach house. What could I do? Legal channels would take months. By then, Vanessa might have found other ways to undermine me, to lock me out of opportunities, to turn our entire family against me. She had the power, the position, the resources. I had nothing except the truth and a growing sense of righteous fury. "I'm going to fight back," I said, "but I need information first. Can you access the company's executive files, specifically Vanessa's?" "That is a serious ask," Jordan replied carefully. "If I get caught—" "I know. I would not ask if I had any other choice. But something is wrong here, Jordan. This level of aggression, the planning involved, the forgery, it does not make sense unless she is hiding something bigger." Another long pause. Then, "What exactly am I looking for?" "Anything unusual. Financial irregularities, communications with board members before Dad died, contracts or agreements that seem off. Anything that might explain why she is so desperate to push me out completely." "Okay," Jordan said finally. "But we need to be smart about this. If there is something to find, I will find it. But you need to be prepared for what that might mean. If Vanessa is hiding something serious, she is not going to go down quietly. Neither will I." We hung up, and I sat in that diner for another hour, drinking refills of terrible coffee and watching the rain begin to fall outside. The Oregon coast was beautiful even in bad weather, all gray mist and pounding waves. I had come here to clear my head, to escape the wreckage of my career. Instead, I had walked into an ambush. But ambushes could go both ways. By evening, I had checked into a motel 15 minutes from the beach house. It was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour or the week. No questions asked. Perfect for what I needed. I set up my laptop on the sagging bed and began documenting everything, creating a timeline of events from Dad's death to this morning's confrontation. Every email Vanessa had sent, every meeting she had scheduled, every strange decision that had not made sense at the time, but now fit a clear pattern. Around midnight, Jordan called back. His voice was tight, excited. "You need to see this," he said. "I am sending you files right now. Check your secure email." I opened my laptop and refreshed my inbox. 3 large PDF files appeared, titled simply VR Contracts, VR Correspondence, and Board Minutes. I clicked on the first one, and my breath caught in my throat. The first document was a consulting contract between Hollowgate Systems and a company called Velmark Capital Partners, dated 6 weeks before Dad's death. The contract committed Hollowgate to paying Velmark $250,000 for strategic advisory services and market analysis. It was signed by Vanessa as Executive Vice President, a title Dad had given her 3 years ago largely because our mother had insisted he treat both daughters equally. But the signature at the bottom was what made my pulse race. The second signature, the one approving the expenditure, was Dad's. Except it was not. I had seen my father's signature thousands of times, had watched him sign documents throughout my childhood and career. This signature was close, very close, but the loop on the D was wrong, and the final flourish too controlled. Dad had developed a tremor in his hands during his last year, something that showed in his writing. This signature was too smooth, too perfect. She forged Dad's signature, I whispered into the phone. Keep reading, Jordan urged. I scrolled down. The contract outlined services that Velmark would provide, all of them vague and impossible to quantify. Market positioning analysis, strategic growth consultation, leadership transition planning. The last phrase made my skin crawl. This contract had been written before Dad died, before anyone except Vanessa could have known there would be a leadership transition. I opened the second file, the correspondence folder. It contained emails between Vanessa and someone named Gregory Haynes at Velmark Capital Partners. The emails started 8 months ago, shortly after Dad's first heart attack, the one he had survived. In them, Vanessa discussed opportunities for restructuring and removing obstacles to growth. One email, dated 7 months ago, made me physically ill. My father's health continues to decline. His attachment to legacy employees and outdated operational models limits our potential. Once the transition occurs, I will need support in making difficult personnel decisions. I want to move quickly before family sentimentality complicates matters. Legacy employees. She meant me. She had been planning to fire me before Dad even died, probably the moment he had his first heart attack, and she had paid $250,000 of company money to help her do it. There is more, Jordan said. Check the board minutes. The third file contained notes from board meetings, the official records that were supposed to be kept confidential but that board members could access. Jordan must have used his credentials as chief financial officer to pull them. I scanned through months of routine business until I reached the meeting held 2 weeks after Dad's funeral. The minutes showed that Vanessa had proposed organizational efficiency measures that included eliminating 3 executive positions: Vice President of Operations, Senior Director of Client Relations, and Director of Sustainable Development. My position, plus 2 others. But when I looked at who held those other positions, I recognized them immediately. They were Dad's people, colleagues who had worked with him for decades, who knew how he operated, and what his vision for the company had been. Vanessa was not just firing me. She was systematically erasing everyone who might question her, or remember how Dad wanted things run. And the board had approved it unanimously. After a presentation where Vanessa had projected cost savings of nearly $800,000 annually. The Velmark contract is the key, Jordan explained. I did some digging on Gregory Haynes. He has a history of consulting with companies during hostile takeovers and restructuring. He specializes in helping new leadership consolidate power quickly. And here is the interesting part. Velmark Capital Partners is partially owned by Trevor's development company. My mind reeled. So Vanessa paid company money to her husband's business associate to help her take over Hollowgate and fire anyone loyal to Dad? It looks that way. And if she forged your father's signature on that contract, that is fraud. Serious fraud. The kind that could void the entire consulting agreement and raise questions about every decision she has made since taking over. I leaned back against the motel headboard, processing this information. Vanessa had not just betrayed me personally. She had betrayed Dad, the company, everyone who worked there. And she had done it with cold calculation, planning months in advance, using forged documents and questionable financial arrangements. Can we prove the signature is forged? I asked. That would require a forensic document examiner, but I pulled up 3 other contracts your dad signed around the same time. I will send them to you. Compare them yourself. The files came through, and I opened them side by side with the Velmark contract. The difference was obvious once I knew what to look for. Dad's real signatures had slight variations, small imperfections, the telltale shake of someone dealing with age and illness. The Velmark signature was too clean, too controlled, probably traced or digitally created. This could destroy her, I said slowly. If this gets out, she loses the CEO position, possibly faces criminal charges, definitely gets sued by the board for misuse of company funds. Yes, Jordan agreed. But you need to be careful how you use this. Vanessa has resources and connections. If you accuse her publicly and cannot prove it immediately, she will bury you in legal proceedings and make you look like a bitter ex-employee with an axe to grind. He was right. I needed leverage, something that would force Vanessa to back down before she could marshal her defenses. And I needed to solve the beach house problem simultaneously, because if she succeeded in stealing my property, that would give her confidence to push harder elsewhere. I need you to do something for me, I said. Make copies of all these files and store them somewhere Vanessa cannot access. Multiple locations, cloud storage, physical drives, everything. If something happens to me or if she tries to destroy the evidence, I need backup. Already done, Jordan replied. I sent copies to 3 different email accounts and uploaded them to 2 secure cloud servers. She would have to hire professional hackers to eliminate all of them. Thank you. I mean it. You are risking a lot by helping me. Your dad hired me when no other firm would take a chance on someone with my background, Jordan said quietly. I owe him everything. And what she is doing to his company, to his legacy. That is not what he would have wanted. I am helping you because it is right. We talked for a few more minutes, strategizing next steps. Jordan would continue monitoring Vanessa's activities at Hollowgate, watching for any signs she suspected I knew about the Velmark contract. Meanwhile, I would handle the beach house situation and gather evidence about the forged power of attorney. After we hung up, I sat in the dim motel room, the stolen documents glowing on my laptop screen. Tomorrow morning, I would go back to that beach house. I would confront my sister and her husband. But this time, I would not be empty-handed. This time, I would have weapons. And I would make them both regret ever calling me a parasite. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay on the motel bed, staring at water stains on the ceiling, my mind churning through possibilities and consequences. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately, to have Trevor and Vanessa arrested for trespassing and fraud. But Jordan's warning echoed in my thoughts. Vanessa had resources, connections, an entire legal team at her disposal through Hollowgate. If I moved too quickly, without absolute proof, she would turn everything around on me. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to make her show her hand completely before I revealed mine. At dawn, I showered in the motel's cramped bathroom and dressed carefully. Professional, but not intimidating. Someone who had nothing to hide and nothing to fear. I stopped at a local office supply store and made copies of everything Jordan had sent me, storing the originals in a safety deposit box at a nearby bank. Then I purchased a small digital recorder, the kind journalists used for interviews. Oregon was a one-party consent state for recordings, which meant I could legally record any conversation I was part of without informing the other parties. The sun was barely up when I pulled back into my beach house driveway. Trevor's Range Rover sat next to Vanessa's Mercedes, both cars screaming casual wealth and privilege. I could see lights on inside, smell coffee brewing. They had made themselves completely at home, as if my property was already theirs. I activated the recorder in my jacket pocket and walked up to the front door. It was still unlocked. I entered without knocking, moving quietly through the living room toward the kitchen where I could hear voices. "Told you she would be back," Vanessa was saying. "She is predictable. Always has been. She probably spent the night crying in some cheap motel, working up the courage to beg us for mercy." "Let her beg," Trevor replied, his voice thick with disdain. "After all the grief she has given you over the years, acting like she was entitled to run Hollowgate just because Daddy favored her. It is time someone put her in her place." I stepped into the kitchen doorway. They both turned, startled. Vanessa recovered quickly, her expression shifting to cold amusement. "Back already? That was fast. I thought you were leaving." "I changed my mind," I said pleasantly, pulling out my phone and opening the Photos app. "I wanted to show you something before I go. It is fascinating, really. I think you will be very interested. I walked to the kitchen counter and set my phone down, turning it so they could see the screen. It showed the Velmark Capital Partners contract, specifically the page with the forged signatures. Vanessa's face went pale. Trevor leaned forward, squinting at the screen, then looked at his wife with confusion. "What is this?" "This," I said, my voice steady and clear for the recorder, "is a contract that Vanessa signed on behalf of Hollowgate Systems 6 weeks before our father died. A contract committing $250,000 of company money to a firm that just happens to be partially owned by your development company, Trevor. A contract that bears what appears to be Dad's signature, except Dad never signed it, because this signature is forged." "That is absurd," Vanessa snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. "You are making wild accusations based on what? Paranoia? Jealousy?" "Based on evidence," I replied. "I have 3 other contracts Dad signed around the same time. The signatures are completely different. His hand tremor shows in all of them except this one. Any forensic document examiner would confirm forgery within minutes." Trevor stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You need to leave. Now. Before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "Trespassing? In my own house?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "That is rich coming from someone who used a forged power of attorney to have keys made. Yes, Trevor, I know about that too. Cascade Property Services keeps very detailed records, and once the police subpoena those records and compare the signature on that document to mine, we will have more proof of fraud. Federal fraud this time, since you crossed state lines to commit it." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched them both, saw the calculations running behind their eyes. Vanessa recovered first, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "You cannot prove any of this," she said, but her tone had shifted, less aggressive, more defensive. "Even if you could, you would have to explain how you obtained confidential company documents. That is theft, industrial espionage. You would be in as much trouble as anyone." "Maybe," I conceded. "Except I am not the one who embezzled $250,000. I am not the one who forged documents. I am not the one who committed fraud to steal property. Any lawyer would tell you that my methods of obtaining evidence pale in comparison to your crimes, especially since everything I have came from legitimate company sources that I, as a current employee until Friday, still have legal access to. That last part was a stretch, but they did not need to know that. What mattered was that they believed I had enough ammunition to destroy them." "What do you want?" Vanessa asked finally, her voice cold as winter. "First, you are going to leave this house immediately and never come back. You are going to contact Cascade Property Services and revoke whatever fraudulent authorization you gave them. Second, you are going to reinstate my position at Hollowgate with full benefits and a formal apology to the staff for the confusion about organizational restructuring." "Absolutely not," Trevor interjected. "We have rights. You have nothing," I interrupted, my patience evaporating. "You have forged documents and fraudulent claims and enough evidence to send you both to prison. Do you really want to test whether a jury will be sympathetic to a wealthy couple who stole from a grieving daughter?" Vanessa's jaw clenched. I could see her mind working, trying to find an angle, a weakness in my position. But there was not one. I had her completely cornered. "And third," I continued, "you are going to transfer the full contents of the Velmark contract to my personal account as compensation for emotional distress and wrongful termination. $250,000, the same amount you embezzled from Hollowgate." "That is extortion," Vanessa hissed. "No, that is justice. Call it a severance package if it makes you feel better. Because here is what happens if you refuse. I take everything I have to the board of directors. I take it to the police. I take it to the local news, because I'm sure they would love a story about sibling rivalry and corporate fraud at a prominent Denver firm. And then I watch, while your career, your reputation, and your freedom all disappear. I picked up my phone and looked at my sister, really looked at her. The woman who used to share secrets with me under blankets during thunderstorms. The woman who had held my hand at Dad's funeral while planning to destroy everything he built. Somewhere along the way, she had become a stranger. Or maybe she had always been this way, and I had been too blind to see it. You have until noon to decide, I said. After that, I start making calls. I walked out of my beach house, leaving them standing in the kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of their plans. My hands shook as I got into my car, but my voice had been steady. The recorder in my pocket had captured everything. Now I just had to wait and see if they would take the deal, or if they would force me to burn everything down. I drove to the same diner from yesterday and ordered breakfast I had no intention of eating. My phone sat on the table in front of me, silent and accusatory. 11:17 in the morning, 43 minutes until my deadline. I had given Vanessa and Trevor until noon to decide their fate, and the waiting was excruciating. The waitress refilled my coffee for the third time, giving me concerned looks that I pretended not to notice. I probably looked like hell. I had not slept properly in days, had barely eaten, and the stress was etched into every line of my face. But none of that mattered. What mattered was whether my sister would call my bluff, because it was partially a bluff. Yes, I had evidence of fraud and forgery. Yes, I had recordings of their confession. But prosecuting them would be complicated, expensive, and emotionally devastating. It would tear apart what remained of our family, make everything public, turn Dad's legacy into a scandal. I did not want that. I just wanted them to leave me alone, to acknowledge that they could not simply erase me from existence because it was convenient. My phone rang at 11:43. Vanessa's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice more before answering, keeping my voice level. Yes? We need to talk, Vanessa said. Her tone was clipped, professional, the same voice she used with difficult clients. In person. Trevor and I are still at your house. I have nothing more to say to you in person. You have 17 minutes to make a decision. After that, I accept your terms, she interrupted. The words came out fast, angry, like they physically hurt her to say. All of them. The house, my position at Hollowgate, the money. But we talk about this face to face first. You owe me that much. I did not owe her anything, but curiosity won out. Fine. I will be there in 10 minutes. The drive back to the beach house felt surreal. I had won. The realization should have filled me with satisfaction, triumph, vindication. Instead, I felt hollow, like a victor surveying the ruins of a Pyrrhic victory. This was my sister, the person I had shared a childhood with, and now we were negotiating terms of surrender like enemies in a corporate war. When I arrived, Vanessa was alone on the front porch, sitting on the steps with her arms wrapped around her knees. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Trevor's Range Rover was gone, leaving only her Mercedes in the driveway. He left, she said without preamble as I approached, took his things and went back to Denver, said I could handle my own family drama. I sat down on the steps beside her, maintaining careful distance. The ocean spread out before us, gray and restless under cloudy skies. We sat in silence for a long moment, two sisters who had become strangers, trying to find words for the wreckage between us. Why? I asked finally. Why go this far? You were going to be CEO regardless. Dad left you the company in his will. You did not need to forge documents or steal my house or destroy my career. You already had everything. Vanessa laughed, a bitter sound that had nothing to do with humor. Is that what you think? That I had everything? She turned to look at me, her eyes red-rimmed. You were Dad's favorite from the moment you were born. Every achievement, every project, every idea, He always praised yours more than mine. Do you know how that feels? To be constantly compared to your younger sister and found wanting? That is not true. Dad loved us equally. Love, maybe. But respect, pride, those were yours. I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. And even then, it was never enough. When he had his first heart attack, do you know what he said to me in the hospital? He said he wished you were there because you would know how to handle the business decisions he was worried about. Not me. You. The confession hit me like a physical blow. I had never known, never suspected the depth of her resentment. Vanessa. So, yes, she continued, her voice gaining strength. I planned to take over completely. To prove that I could run Hollowgate better than you ever could. Better than Dad did. The Velmark contract was supposed to give me the tools to restructure, to modernize, to make the company profitable in ways Dad never imagined. And this house? She gestured at the building behind us. Trevor convinced me we deserved it, that you had gotten enough from Dad already. So you decided to steal it. I decided to take what should have been mine from the beginning, Vanessa snapped. But you are right. I went too far. The forgery, the fraud. I justified it by telling myself it was strategic, necessary. But really, I just wanted to hurt you the way I had been hurt for years. I processed this, trying to reconcile the bitter, jealous woman beside me with the sister I thought I knew. Had I been blind to her pain? Had Dad's favoritism, real or perceived, created this monster? Transfer the money by end of business day, I said, standing. $250,000 to my personal account. I will send you the routing information. And call the office. Tell them you made a mistake about the restructuring, that my position is secure. And if I do this, you will destroy the evidence? No, I said honestly. I will keep it. Insurance in case you ever try something like this again. But I will not take it to the board or the police unless you force my hand. We can both move forward, run the company together like Dad wanted, or we can destroy each other. Your choice. Vanessa stood slowly, brushing sand off her pants. I choose survival. For now. The wire transfer appeared in my account at 4:32 that afternoon. $250,000, with a memo line that read simply, settlement. I stared at the numbers on my phone screen, feeling nothing. The money was compensation, vindication, proof that I had won. But it felt empty. This was not what I had wanted when I started working at Hollowgate 8 years ago. I had wanted partnership, family, a legacy to be proud of. Instead, I had transactions and threats, and a sister who hated me. My phone rang again. Jordan this time. You did it, he said, unable to contain his excitement. Vanessa just sent a company-wide email. She is announcing organizational changes, saying that after careful review, all executive positions will remain intact. She specifically mentioned you by name, praised your contributions, and said she looks forward to continued collaboration. Good, I said flatly. Good? That is it? You just won. You beat her at her own game. Did I? Because it does not feel like winning. Jordan was quiet for a moment. What do you want me to say? That this was clean and satisfying? It was not. It was messy and complicated and probably permanently damaged your relationship with your sister, but you protected yourself and the company. That counts for something. Maybe, I conceded. Listen, I need a few days before I come back to Denver. Can you cover for me? Of course. Take all the time you need. But what are you going to do now? Long term, I mean. You and Vanessa cannot keep working together like this. Eventually, something else will break. He was right. The temporary truce we had established would not last. Vanessa's resentment ran too deep, and now I had humiliated her, forced her to acknowledge defeat. She might honor our agreement for now, but eventually she would find another way to push me out. I am going to find a lawyer, I said, making the decision as I spoke. Someone who specializes in business law and corporate governance. And I am going to explore options for protecting myself permanently. Maybe that means forcing a sale of my shares. Maybe it means establishing boundaries that even the CEO cannot cross. I do not know yet, but I am done being vulnerable. Smart, Jordan approved. I can recommend someone, a woman named Carolyn who handled some contract disputes for us last year. She is tough, ethical, and does not back down from powerful opponents. Perfect for dealing with Vanessa. We talked logistics for a few more minutes, then hung up. I stood on the beach house deck, watching the sun break through the clouds, painting the water in shades of copper and gold. This place was mine again, truly mine, and nobody could take it away. That should have been enough. But I found myself thinking about Dad, about what he would have said if he could see what his daughters had become. Would he be disappointed? Ashamed? Or would he understand that sometimes families break? That good intentions and shared blood are not enough to overcome fundamental incompatibilities? I spent the next 3 days at the beach house, not hiding exactly, but not ready to face Denver either. I walked the beach each morning collecting shells and driftwood, letting the ocean air clear my head. I called Carolyn, Jordan's lawyer recommendation, and spent 2 hours on the phone explaining my situation. She listened carefully, asked pointed questions, and by the end of our conversation, had outlined 3 possible strategies for protecting my interests at Hollowgate. The nuclear option, she explained, would be forcing a complete buyout. You sell your shares to Vanessa or an outside investor and walk away clean. You lose the company, but you get liquid assets and freedom from her influence. And the other options? We establish an operating agreement that limits the CEO's power over certain positions and decisions. We could make your role as Vice President of Operations protected, requiring board approval for termination. Or we could push for profit-sharing arrangements that give you financial security, even if she tries to marginalize your operational authority. I considered each option carefully. Walking away completely would be easiest emotionally, but it would also mean abandoning Dad's legacy, letting Vanessa's version of the company become the only version. The thought made my stomach turn. I want to fight for the operating agreement, I decided. Protection for my position and clear boundaries on executive power. Can we present that to the board without making it look like a direct attack on Vanessa? Absolutely. We frame it as good governance, protection for all executives, institutional stability. The board should appreciate limiting CEO power regardless of who holds the position. It is smart corporate policy. By the end of the week, Carolyn had drafted a proposal. Jordan agreed to present it at the next board meeting, positioning it as a joint recommendation from the executive team, rather than a power play. It was subtle, strategic, and exactly the kind of long-term protection I needed. On my last morning at the beach house, I stood on the deck with my coffee, watching dolphins play in the waves offshore. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Vanessa says you two had a productive conversation. I am glad you are working things out. Family is important. I almost laughed. Vanessa had spun our confrontation into something positive, probably to avoid explaining why she suddenly needed to transfer $250,000 to me. Classic Vanessa, controlling the narrative. But I did not correct my mother. Let her believe we had reconciled. Let everyone believe the story Vanessa wanted to tell. I knew the truth, had the evidence to prove it, and that was enough. I returned to Denver on a Tuesday morning, driving straight to Hollowgate Systems without stopping at my apartment first. The parking garage felt different somehow, less intimidating than it had a week ago. I was no longer the employee facing termination. I was the woman who had evidence of fraud, who had forced a CEO to back down, who was implementing structural changes to prevent future abuse of power. Jordan met me at the elevator, grinning. "Welcome back. You look better. Less homicidal." "Just better rested," I replied. "How did the board meeting go?" "Perfectly. Carolyn was brilliant. She presented the operating agreement as routine governance improvement, cited 3 other companies in our sector that have similar protections. The board ate it up. They voted unanimously to approve it, with Vanessa abstaining to avoid appearance of conflict of interest. She abstained? Vanessa? That was surprising. My sister never gave up control voluntarily. I think she realized fighting it would raise questions about why she opposed protecting executive positions. Better to abstain and maintain the appearance of cooperation. We rode the elevator to the executive floor. As the doors opened, I saw Vanessa standing near her office, talking to Douglas, the company attorney. She glanced up, met my eyes briefly, then returned to her conversation without acknowledgement. No greeting, no hostility, just professional distance. It was perhaps the most honest interaction we had had in months. Claire, my assistant, rushed over the moment I stepped off the elevator. Thank goodness you are back. I have about 40 items that need your attention, 3 client meetings to schedule, and the sustainable building proposal deadline is next week. Let me settle in, I said, smiling at her obvious relief. We will tackle everything this afternoon. My office looked exactly as I had left it. The blueprints on my desk, the photos of completed projects on the walls, even the coffee mug I had abandoned when Vanessa fired me. It was as if the past week had never happened, as if I had never been told my services were no longer required. Except everything had changed. I had changed. I spent the rest of the day methodically working through accumulated tasks, rebuilding relationships with clients, reasserting my presence in the company. Several colleagues stopped by with transparent excuses to check on me, their curiosity barely concealed. I gave them nothing, maintaining professional cheerfulness and refusing to discuss what had happened. At 5 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number with a local area code. This is Cascade Property Services, Jennifer's familiar voice said. I am calling to confirm that we have received written authorization from Vanessa Reynolds to terminate all agreements regarding your property and destroy the documentation she previously provided. We apologize for any confusion or inconvenience. Thank you for letting me know, I said. I appreciate your professionalism in handling this matter. After she hung up, I allowed myself a small smile. Vanessa had kept her promises, all of them. The house was secure, my job protected, the money transferred. She had surrendered completely, and now we both had to figure out how to exist in the same corporate space without destroying each other or the company. The following weeks established our new dynamic. Vanessa ran the company with ruthless efficiency, making decisions that prioritized profit and growth. I managed operations, maintained client relationships, and pushed forward Dad's vision for sustainable architecture. We communicated through email and formal meetings, never alone, always professional. Our mother commented several times on how well we were working together, oblivious to the undercurrent of Cold War between us. 2 months after the beach house confrontation, I received a letter from Trevor's attorney. He and Vanessa were divorcing. The petition cited irreconcilable differences and made no mention of fraud, forgery, or property disputes. Reading between the lines, I suspected Vanessa had decided her husband was a liability, someone who knew too much and could not be trusted to keep quiet indefinitely. Cutting him loose was strategic, clean, very much her style. I sent Vanessa a brief email. Heard about the divorce. Let me know if you need anything. She never responded, but the next day, a small gift appeared on my desk. A framed photograph of Dad at his drafting table, back when Hollowgate was just starting, surrounded by blueprints and coffee cups in the chaos of creation. The frame was simple, elegant, expensive. No note accompanied it, but none was needed. It was acknowledgement, perhaps even apology. I kept the photo on my desk, a reminder of what we were both fighting for, in our different ways. Dad's legacy was not just the company he built. It was also the lesson that power without ethics destroys everything it touches. Vanessa had learned that lesson the hard way. So had I. 6 months later, Trevor was quietly arrested for an unrelated fraud scheme involving his development company. Federal investigators discovered a pattern of forged documents and misappropriated funds spanning 3 years. His trial made regional news, and though Vanessa's name never appeared in the coverage, I suspected she had provided investigators with just enough information to ensure he could not retaliate against her. The divorce settlement left Trevor with nothing, while Vanessa walked away financially intact. As for me, I poured my energy into the sustainable building division, watching it grow from a proposal Dad and I had dreamed about into a thriving department. My beach house became a sanctuary again, a place where ocean waves drowned out the complications of family and business. I never forgot what my sister had tried to do, never fully forgave the betrayal. But I learned to coexist with her, to channel my anger into something productive. Looking back on that terrible week, I realized Vanessa had been wrong about one thing. I was never a parasite. I was a survivor, and that made all the difference.